Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of She Who Remembers. I am sitting here with Melissa, a spiritual teacher, wealth educator, and business coach who has guided thousands of clients through breakthroughs in being, business, and bank accounts. She's built a seven-figure business, led sold-out global retreats, and created transformational spaces where deep growth and connection happen. Melissa blends spiritual practices with practical strategy, helping people create freedom, joy, and impact in everyday life. Melissa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and connect with you and to chat all the things. So thank you.
Of course. Can you tell us a little bit about your lineage and the medicine that you work with?
So there's a couple of different pieces. I actually really feel called first to talk about the medicine I work with because I love that this podcast is called She Who Remembers because a lot of it has been that process of remembering. I used to feel very disconnected from both my ancestral lineage as well as I have some connection with past life lineage that we're going to get into as well and being initiated in that pathway. And it really has been this process of remembering gifts, remembering um, who I am in the world, and letting myself step into that and claim that, right? And so through that process of remembering, there's been a couple of pretty big transformations in my life, like completely. And when I mean transformations, I mean like the real deal of like, oh, we're in this state and do not know that there's even another way of operating, like completely blind to that there's an alternate reality, that could be lived in that I was able to walk through. Yeah, and through that process of remembering and through support of the lineage. So I'll say like the medicine I work with really in my own life, I've actually been in this process the last couple of months of sitting with a deepening question of like, what are my gifts to share? And one of the biggest one that came through is being able to facilitate in my own life and in the lives of others transformation. And I know that can sound, well, I think for those of us who get it, right? But it's like there's some different areas that shows up in the lives of my clients and in my own life. Yeah, and I've been able to transform my health, my voice, my wealth, my relationships, all of these pieces. The lineage pieces that have been remembered in my life, there's three main ones. So ancestral, I talked about a past life one, and then also the earth, right? I feel like um, we're all in the lineage of Mother Earth. We're here on Earth, connected to the earth, made of substances from the earth, eating and returning to and shedding skin from the earth. I am very grateful that I was raised very rurally in Tennessee, and a lot of my time was spent outside as a child, just like wandering the woods by myself. And so there's been this very natural connection to the earth in this life since I can remember. Um, and then so one of them that has been more of a remembered, more of a reclaiming that I've been working with um, more so over the last couple of years is my great grandmother was a Lakota Sioux woman. She was separated from her family, raised in a school where she was disconnected from her parents, disconnected from her siblings, and assimilated, right? So removed of her name. These schools are very like it's very known now that there's like they're whitewashing, like violent culture stripping away. Like that's what it is. You change your name, you become Christian. It's a genocidal school, right? It's to
Mhm.
kill your ancestry, to kill off your culture, to kill off your spirituality. And her spirit, so I've been I want to say I've been working with her like that those but I'm like that's not actually true. She's been working with me. She's really been working with me, and I had a lot of resistance because I'm a white woman, right? I do not have the lived experience of I am not brown. I'm not perceived as someone who has native ties, all of those kind of things. And I had a lot of blocks and resistance, but I can see directly how that generational trauma impacted my lineage, right? And have been working with it. And she's really been working with me, and we can, I'm sure, get into all of that. And then the third is that I had over like a weaving path connections to Tibetan Buddhism and have been initiated in that lineage, have a dedicated root teacher that I've been working with since 2019. And that practice and um, that way of being, the philosophy, the being held in that lineage has been hourly transformative in ways that were beyond what I could comprehend in those first moments when I was taking vows and being initiated. I really had no idea what was coming for me, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot more. So, yeah, so that's the gist.
It's so
What else do you want to talk about?
here's everything. I still have 1,000 questions.
Okay, great.
I don't even know where I want to start, but I do want to. I kind of want to ask the way that you've been guided and have been weaving through this path from childhood to where you are now, and your grandmother kind of coming in and like trying to help you with your work that you're doing and what sounds like clearing the maternal lineage and some of that generational trauma. Is that what opened you up to this Tibetan Buddhist path? Or was this something that you just wanted for yourself and wanted to kind of be a part of culturally to integrate into like the work that you're doing now?
Okay, so yeah,
Where did the
um,
weaving happen?
there is no log. I'm just gonna be as real as possible because there is no logic in this. Like, it kind of doesn't make sense, but it does at the same time. Um, so I would say that I wouldn't say it's like one led me to the other or vice versa. It was more of like a natural unfolding over time. My goodness. And yeah, you'll I think as you ask, and feel free to just ask whatever
Okay.
because there's a lot here. Um the ties to my grandmother I couldn't really see for a while because there was just so much intensity there. So we didn't even know for a while where she came from because she did not talk about it. She did not talk about it. My dad said that she would kinda, like, go off into the woods to be alone, but she did not talk about these things.
Very
It was
interesting.
not spoken about. And I felt these, like, draws that I can speak about. Some of them are making more sense literally in just the past few weeks. Um, but she really became more present in the last and, like, I think it'll be clear that this is something I'm still really working I mean, all of this is I'm alive, I'm on my path, you know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
And she really showed up for me very strongly after I left a very abusive relationship. That was when, because I kind of always felt this, like, like, her presence,
Yeah.
and I've felt other ancestral presences, but hers was very strong, and I'm like, "Why?" I have another grandmother who is an artist, I have her art all around me, and I couldn't really feel her in the same way, and I felt, again, this resistance because I'm like, I don't wanna be this white woman who's like, "No, look, I'm Native." Like, you know what I mean? I did not wanna do that. You know how you know okay,
Yeah.
anyway. So I
Yeah.
was like, "No, I'm not." I was like, "It's good." And she really the times when I felt her the strongest have been when I've been offline.
Mm,
So, about right after I left this abusive relationship, I was in Colombia, South America, leading a retreat that was completely offline. So I'd been offline for about like 10 days at this time. So no phone, anything like that. And actually, no, there was a time that there were other times I'd connected with her before this, like in dreams and things like that. But I was awake. I was awake and I was like, I know I'm awake. And she was like there. And there were 2 nights in a row that she was really there. And she was like, you're being selfish. Like, basically, this is the gist. You're being selfish. This is healing that needs to be done. And you feeling shame about it is not actually helping anyone. This is who you are, where you're coming from. and we're doing lineage healing work here. And it's beyond you. It's bigger than you and what you think is right and wrong. And I was like, okay, I get that. And there was parts of it that scared me to the point that was like tried to shut off that awareness a little bit. It was yeah. And there's been more from that has unfolded, but that's kind of really the moment where I accepted it and was like, okay, I'm like being called to like work with this and I will do that. With the Buddhist lineage, I grew up in very rural Tennessee and I had all of these um, ways that I didn't fit in when I was growing up. I didn't speak until I was 3 years old. I was diagnosed with social anxiety. I was very much like the weird kid who didn't wasn't sure how to fit in and had to like teach myself how to talk to people and stuff. I literally had to learn that as a skill. But at this point I just have people around me who like I feel very comfortable with. And yeah, I had a lot of childhood trauma happen. I was very anxious. I felt disconnected from myself, disconnected from my body, all of these things that make sense if you're not living in an environment that is supportive to you if you experience trauma, all of that kind of stuff. And so I was literally just researching online when I was about 18 and started to learn about meditation. And I started practicing meditation. And it's now been a 15-year daily practice, and I love it. It's, like, it's just a part of my life now, right? And
Life
it's
change.
really changed my life, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was starting to pick up, just again, I was in rural Tennessee. I didn't have a teacher. I didn't really have access to teachers or go to retreats or anything like that at the time. And I started to read books and just naturally started gravitating towards some Buddhist books. I was also studying a lot of like yoga philosophy at the time, which there's a lot of overlap and interconnectedness. Buddhism started in India, all of that. And I moved to Boulder, Colorado, and I that came through actually in a vision I had doing holotropic breath work in one of these retreats. Yeah.
Holotropic breathwork is like
Yeah. Yeah, that session changed my life in a lot of ways. Yeah, it literally, like, catalyzed my business growing, and I moved to Boulder, Colorado.
holy
And it took me 6 months because I couldn't afford to live here when I first had that vision that I needed to move here. I was like, "Well, okay, like, I need to move to one of the most expensive places in the United States. What do you mean? Like, I'm not making any money. What do you mean?" And so then again, I had to heal my relationship with money. I had to grow my business, all that kind of stuff. And when I moved out here, Boulder was one of the first places in the West that Buddhism really started to take root. And when China started to colonize Tibet, and a lot of Tibetans were refugees, and, you know, teachers started moving out of that area and coming to the West. And so there's a lot of Buddhism here. And actually, I connected with my teacher through my abusive partner. For real. For real. Yep. Yep.
that's literally divine intervention. Like
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I initially met this teacher by it was suggested to me again by this partner. He was doing a teaching in Hawaii for a week. And I went and I spent the last money I had to go there. I rented a car for the week and people hosted him, but I was an attendant to him. I drove him around. I helped with all the teachings. And that was my first connection, my first in this lifetime connection. And since then, I've had moments of remembering past life connections to this lineage and truly just have learned again and again, and even in part by being in this abusive relationship that connected me. But it wasn't like the connection was there anyway, right? It's not like he gave me this connection, it was like it was there. And I've had so many times of like refining that devotion and that connection to the lineage. And yeah, it's been really powerful.
and can you tell people exactly what it is, the Tibetan Buddhism, and how it connects you even more to your body? Like this is in the Tantra breath space, right?
So there's a variety of practices that you can do. There are teachers who speak to, and we see this we see this with money, we see this with business. Like, there's a very similar phenomenon of like spiritual materialism where it's like, oh, like I'm chasing peak experiences or like, trying to collect as many practices. And the partner I was with was very interested in just trying to go to as many practices as possible. And I was like, cool. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was like, sounds good.
I'm there.
And then I was like, wait, I'm not actually, at this point, I'm like, I learned more practices than I could ever do on a daily basis or integrate. Like, there was no way. So I'll speak to my personal practice, right? Um, there's there's obviously like a seated meditation. So it's called shamatha and vipassana. Those two can be either separated or combined, where shamatha is focused on your concentration. So it's like what you would think of when you're focusing on an object or focusing on your breath. And it's really about learning to direct your awareness and to build a capacity for presence. Initially, that kind of practice helped me with things like anxiety and understanding myself. And now it helps me with trusting my psychic awareness and things like that as well. And then insight, which is understanding the nature of your body, your mind, and the nature of just life in general. So that's the practice I do about daily. I at least do some sort of seated meditation. Um, and then there is breath work, right? And it's very much recommended. Part of being in a lineage is going to lineage holders who have, you know, it's just always good to affirm why lineage is important. Like, it's important. It's very important
It
to learn
literally
from
is.
people who really um know what they're talking about with these practices. So there's like working with the breath, working with the body, working with your energy channels in different ways. There's mantras, right? So daily I'm doing, I have like a recurring mantra practice that I do that gets to build every time I do it. There's prayers. Every single day is restating your intention. What's the intention here? And it's bodhicitta in this lineage. This is more important than anything, really. Like, those practices are great, but like this is the first thing, and this is why. But may I gain enlightenment. Enlightenment is simply like one way to really simplify it is the combination of wisdom and love, a capacity for both those things to see clearly, to understand, and to love, to have compassion, to love yourself, to have joy, all of that. Yeah, and you can do these practice and then you dedicate. There's different, you know, one thing, there's a couple of misconceptions around Buddhism that means you can have no belongings ever, or that you're gonna eat like 3 grains of rice for the rest of your life or whatever it is, and that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes it can be, but well, maybe not the 3 grains of rice thing, but yeah, you can offer prayers for the highest good for yourself, the highest good for all. That can include wealth. It can include family. It just depends on people's path. Like, my path includes I'm not gonna be a monk, or at least not now. Who knows? Maybe, but like a monk or a nun. So, like, I have possessions. I am interested in having a family and, building wealth, all of these kind of things for time freedom, for health, all of that.
That's incredible, and I can feel your love radiate, so
Aw,
it's very beautiful.
yay! We're doing it.
It's working.
It's working.
And I feel like in, people who dive into the Buddhist path or the Taoist path, they can get so hardcore where they're trying to achieve rainbow body and they just cut ties from everything, everyone, and it becomes very intense, but they're like one with all. It's something that's even so hard to conceptualize, but it's like, what is your path in this incarnation and what you're being called to do? And it's really beautiful that you're holding space for others and you're in this transformational space of here's what I went through and taking your pain and turning it into medicine for other people. It's so powerful.
Well,
So
that's the importance of integration, right? Like, I know for me, like, I am not light enough in my karma yet to just like be like, cool, let me just do a little skippity skip right to rainbow body real quick. You know what I mean?
bye guys.
Like, I'm still like, no, I got some steps before that, and like at this point, I'm like, that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, I'm cool with it at this point, you know?
Yeah,
Like, that'd be great. Like, I'm all like, "Let's do it," you know?
down the road. When you become a nun. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we'll get there. Maybe I don't know. It could be, you know, it could be a while. That's fine. You
I
know?
know. But I wanna talk about, the abusive relationship you were in, because experiencing something like that is deeply traumatic, and so kind of how that formed how you were feeling through it, and then when you decided, like, enough is enough, and your grandmother started coming in, and you really started to make those changes, because I think what we see in abusive relationships is people either know or they're, like, in denial, and then they feel stuck, and they feel unsafe, and they don't know how to get out of it. So a little bit of what that journey looked like for you.
Yeah, I was in denial.
Oh, no.
I was I was in denial. I mean, I was in this position where it's like when I mentioned being in these positions where I just didn't know there were other options. And, you know, it's like, for instance, when I wanted to become an entrepreneur, I didn't really even know that was an option until I saw entrepreneurs and could see that, oh, there's like this other option, right? And had to learn how, like, one of my lived experiences, and it's not just like a belief at this point, but it had to be like, I believe this is potentially possible, was that my business could be really supportive and joyful and all those kind of things, right? I eventually recognized I did not have that belief about relationships at all. I thought relationships were hard. I thought like you just constantly had to be working on them. I thought that it was going to be stressful, and that was just like, yeah, I had this idea of, like, equating love with intensity,
Mm.
and it kept me having ties and having attachment to someone who didn't, for multiple reasons, didn't have the capacity to, value me, be kind to me, um, be stable in the ways I needed, and escalated over time. And like that trauma bond formed where, you know, being in an abusive relationship, some of the things that really helped me were understanding what a trauma bond is, and that chemical attachment that happens with intermittent reinforcement, like that wanting to like so badly be validated by this person that I would never be able to get it from, how stressed my hormones were, all of that kind of stuff. But he was emotionally abusive, physically abusive, sexually abusive, spiritually abusive, all the things. And I was in denial. I was completely in denial. And he had a psychotic break. So he has a history of that, which I didn't know at the time. There were also just a lot of lies. And he had a psychotic break. He got arrested. And that was really the moment that it there was literally like this moment where the police were at my house. And after talking to them for a while, I was like, wait, what's going on? And they were like, well, based on everything you said to us, he wasn't there. He was like, you're going to, he's going to be arrested, and you're being put into a program for people at risk of being murdered by their partners. And I mean, that's literally what it took for me.
I
That's literally,
got full body chills.
yeah. That's what it took. It took that much. Of course, it was so impactful, but I also had so many things that I can really only see as like protection.
Mhm.
That I was like really supposed to get through it. Protection, privileges, so many different things, weird synchronicities where, like, while he was having his psychosis state, I was out of town and came back to like he had already been through the worst of it, right? Things like that happened. I had made connections with people who had gone through something like that. It was just like,
It always happens that way.
yeah, yeah. I mean, at that point, I had developed my business to the point that I had money. I had saved plenty of money. I could take time off. I could, like, there was a big financial hit and I could take it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of what happened there. Yeah. That's the main gist of it. I mean,
Yeah.
after that, there were legal pieces, it was a lot to unpack for sure, a lot.
And it's, like, crazy because I think you realize your tolerance for things is just so vast that you were like in it and then not even realizing, wait, this is not healthy. This is not normal. I deserve more. But the fact that you were just like in it and still growing a business and doing all of these other things is
Yeah.
insane.
I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like, imagine, just imagine, because I'm like, well, I'm feeling it now. I've been in a relationship now. So after that relationship, I had another relationship, and it was someone who kind of love bombed me at the beginning and then had avoidant tendencies, right? So
Nice.
not someone who had like psychopathic tendencies, like it was a step up. Cool, but a little better. But after that point, I was like I'm 33 years old. I am so done with this, and I know that I've applied myself so deeply in so many other areas of my life and figured it out when I was burnt out. Like, and burnout, for anybody who doesn't know this, your hormones are out of balance, your adrenals, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's a physical condition, right? Not just like a emotional, although it impacts all of that, obviously. I had healed that. I had healed my period. I had, gone from being so confused and bewildered about money and business to like being really good at it, all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, I really want to apply myself and figure this out, and spend 6 months in studying it every day for a couple hours and processing. I mean, this was after a couple years of already processing the abusive relationship, but being like, I'm not gonna be in these dynamics with men anymore. And now I'm in a relationship that's like beyond anything. Like, again, it's a different reality. It's secure, supportive. And I'm like, oh wow, if I can build a rock star business when I'm in an abusive relationship. Like, imagine what I can do when I'm loved and
Absolutely.
adored and supported and all of those kind of things. So,
The creativity that comes from being in love and being supported and just having like a literal partner in sacred
mhm.
reciprocity, it's life changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then experiencing that burnout, what got you out of that state as well? Because I think a lot of people are in burnout and they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. They're like, okay, well, money's tight. I need to work, 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 work because I have these bills to pay. And they're worried about everything that's external versus like almost, in my opinion, it's like, yeah, you apply action to get yourself out of that burnout state of rest periods. But I think it also is so mental of really just that self talk of, no, I can hold more capacity for money to flow in and almost like money manifestations and things to like get
Mhm.
yourself to a state of knowing that you can have it all. What did some of that look like for you? Because I know a ton of people experience burnout, and I know that you work with a ton of people who are in that state and transform their lives.
Yeah. The first way that I would put it is it felt like, and there's been a couple of times where I've had to deepen this. Like, I'm thinking of like 3 specific times where it's like going from being an engineer who was in a cubicle, coming home and crying after work, and how busy I was, how drained I was through school, to stepping into a business, starting my business, right? And like quitting my job. The second time is when my business had really built up a lot, and I actually went deeper and worked with some of the like hormonal pieces and all of that. Um and then in the last couple years, like experiencing that trauma 3 years ago, I had to go through another period of recovery, because having an acute trauma like that can burn you out. So I had to take space from my business. I had to get to know myself again, get to know my capacity again, allow my body to feel safe again. So there's kind of like my experience each time, what I've seen with the people I work with, it's felt like going through this tunnel where there's a light at the end, but there's going to be this dark period or this path that's like, I know there's some sort of view on the other side. I know I had to rely on other people's evidence each time of like, cool. I have seen people go through, a big trauma and come out on this other side. I have seen people who are entrepreneurs and love what they're doing. I've seen people who are working with healers who tell me, oh, you don't have to be tired all the time, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of had to rely on someone being like, no, there's this view over here if you just walk this way. And just kind of go on that and be like, take the next step, take the next step, take the next step. And someone would show up and be like, oh, come this way. Or like, this will help, or if you wear these shoes or whatever, the path had to appear. But it was really just that courage and being like, I'm gonna orient towards that instead of just staying in the same place, and I don't know every step, and I don't know what it's fully gonna look like when I get there, and I know I might have to drop some things off along the way, but I'm gonna commit to going on this journey even if it takes a long time, even if I stumble or I backtrack, but I'm gonna commit to going on the journey, and eventually I don't think you get there, that kind of analogy implies that there's a getting there, but you definitely at least your default shifts, like, you become someone who's more in this different reality. So I feel like for me, having an understanding of how that transformation occurs can be applied to whatever you want to change, whether you're wanting to have a different experience in relationships or with money or with your body or whatever it is. And then you can start to break down what the little tangible pieces and all of that.
Per person. Yeah. I think that's what people don't realize is it doesn't have to look perfect. It can be messy. Like fall 7 times, get up 8. If you fail, you're actually going to learn from that failure and exponentially grow. And really to be able to have those death and rebirths of I need to lose things in order to make space for the new things that are actually going to support what I'm stepping into.
Yeah, I've seen in particular with lots of clients who are recovering from burnout and wanting to operate their businesses in different ways. It's like I'm thinking of I have a year-long container where people go through this process. Sometimes what happens is people join the container and then within like a month or so they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm realizing I'm exhausted and I'm realizing that all this stuff that I've been doing isn't working anymore." And I'm like, "I'm sorry I'm smiling about this, but, like, this is actually good." I'm like, "This is good. This is good news," you know? Like, you're becoming aware of the patterns that need to change. You're actually feeling the things that have been pushed down, and that's a big part of the process. It's a necessary like, the whole decomposition, there has to be the compost and the nutrients, the dead things to create and make space for a different way, you know?
Yeah, because you speak of us kind of being cyclical with nature. It's fight, flight, freeze, nervous system responses that are like, we can't operate in this way. Like, we're already so amped up with like our phones and how much our minds are holding capacity wise that you literally get to a point where you're like, I can't. And then you start to feel trapped in the situation you're in because you're like, wait, you can just quit or you can just walk out. But I think our nervous systems are in such overload that it's like, oh my god, you start getting just panic state at any moment, you can make those changes and choose differently for yourself.
Mhm.
Change those patterns.
Yeah. Yeah, and it takes time. Sometimes you have to be like, "Cool, I'm actually wait a second. I'm actually" I can use my relationship as an example of this. Like, there were times where I felt like I wanted to express something to him that I would not have been safe to express in past relationships.
Mhm.
And I would ask myself and I would, like, freeze up or, like, go into an anxiety spiral about it. And then I would be like, "Wait, what kind of relationship do I wanna have? I wanna have a relationship where I can express these kinda things." And then I would do it, and then and then with him in particular, it would be great, it would be fine, right? Because he would, again, like, it's more of a relational thing, but, like, with our work, with money, we kinda have to, like not kinda, we do have to train ourselves that it's safe to be in this unfamiliar state where when you're not used to it, it also feels threatening. It can feel very threatening to stay where you are, but it can also feel threatening to be making a lot of money, to be visible, to have responsibility, to have clients who are asking you, for support. All of that takes like letting your nervous system get adjusted to. It's also there's that relationship to the business, there's that relationship to your body. I think being able to see that deep interconnectedness of all of it is really powerful.
I absolutely
Yeah.
love that, and it's so real, and I genuinely believe that our nervous system builds capacity in dream state, where it's like, hey, you're gonna have these experiences in your dreams so that when you wake up in reality, you've already kind of lived it in a way that your actual conscious mind can catch up to what you felt and experienced.
I
Is it so
love
helpful?
that. I love that, and that's a big part of your work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like when you experience, it's like have the experience too, though. It's like I can sit here and say this, but till somebody actually experiences it themselves, it's like, yes, now we can, have a conversation about it and really build on it and things of that nature. So,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
So any healers or entrepreneurs that are listening to this, so I do have a lot of people in the spiritual entrepreneurship space that tune in. If they're in debt, they're struggling and they're having these money blocks, what are the biggest, maybe like 3 things that you would tell them? And this could be like a physical thing, an emotional thing, spiritual thing, to start changing and transforming their life through the money mindset work that you do.
Mhm. Okay. For that particular person, so when it comes to transforming that, I think we also have to acknowledge a completion. If there is, I want to speak to debt. If someone is experiencing debt, there might have to be this completion because debt is a deficit. It's like an energy deficit, financial deficit. We can also experience debt in many other ways, like with our bodies. That's what burnout is. It's like a physical debt,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so often, what I see people try to make a leap into a different way of experiencing things without actually completing what's already been set in motion. So there might be a period of time where you see a vision, right? A lot of intuitive people, like you can see vision, you can see the future, you can see where you're meant to go, but you need to complete what's here. So there are different ways you can do this. I really recommend for people to become, I mean, I could literally go off on a soapbox and talk about this for like 4 hours, honestly. So,
Where to?
so I'm going to speak to what I think could be the most powerful for people, but really honoring that completion, meaning don't try to skip over it, don't try to avoid it. I really recommend people to like sit with their dad, like actually look at it, grieve whatever you need to grieve, feel whatever comes up. That might be grief, that might be gratitude. It could be a couple of different things, right? And just explore, see what pathways arise for you to complete that process that's already been in place, that seed that's already been planted. That might be like you might have to have a part time job for a while you're running your business. That might be like, my expenses got higher than my income while I was going through that separation. But because I had investments. It didn't Did I wanna pull out money from my investments? No. But that's what I did to, like, help complete that process, right? Seeds that were already planted of, like, the decisions I made. Like, sometimes our debts I made a debt in this relationship of, like, self-abandoning so hard that it impacted my finances, right? So I had to like complete that process, right? And part of it can also be growing your business, right? But really be like, okay, I'm going to honor this and complete it. I'm going to let this die, right? I'm going
Mhm.
to let this come to a close because when people aren't actually able to sustain a transformation, a lot of times they haven't fully honored the completion. Like it's not actually complete. So really sit with that question of how to complete it.
That's
And then
powerful.
I'm glad. And beyond that, again, I could speak about this for hours. There's so many tangible resources. I had a client the other day who reached out to me. She had a crisis happen earlier this year. She went through a financial loss because of it. And she told me she was in debt. And I said, call your people and tell them a crisis happened. They lowered her interest rates from 20 to 5%. So there are tangible things you can do of learning, like look up this like snowball versus avalanche methods of paying off debt. Like there are ways that you can work with it. And then start to learn how to plant the seeds for the fruits you'd like to have. Learn how to steward money well. Learn how to live within your means. Learn how to increase your income. Study business, study sales, study how to make your offers more valuable. Learn there's both tangible stewardship money skills as well as our embodied capacity. So working with your nervous system responses around money, working with your relationship with money, working with any like avoidance or attachment you have around money, all of that is really powerful. And again, it's very much like anytime you go through any transformation, at first you're like, oh my God, I have no idea how this is all going to change. It feels like a lot. it feels like a lot, but if you just work with it a little bit, a little bit, a little bit each day, it compounds and you start to build it toward that future that you actually want to create.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's like the decisions and the mindset that we have today impacts our literal reality as it's unfolding in real time tomorrow, the next day, the next day. So it's like the conversation we're having today is like our reality of what we're kind of dreaming into what the next days, weeks, months will look like. So it's like
Mhm.
staying in that vibration of, no, I'm going to make friends with my money and I'm going to heal my relationship with my money. I think these are such beautiful, tangible approaches for people to implement, like, I'm not gonna be in scarcity or be avoiding or, like, not look at that debt in my bank account.
Yeah.
I think that's the easier way to do it, it's just to, like, avoid it, but you're like, "No, sit with it, feel it."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the money methodology. So I had worked with people with money for years before it was like a methodology and a framework like revealed itself,
Mhm.
like that's kind of how it's been for me. It's like they reveal themselves. And I call it heal, deepen, expand. And a lot of times the healing gets skipped over and it's jumping into the expand part, being like, well, let me try to make more and all that kind of stuff. But then I've worked with a lot of people who have made millions of dollars and still feel broke and feel terrible about it and all of these things because there's healing work that needs to be done. Or people who can't sustain it, people who are still burning out because they're not connected to their core values when it comes to money. They're more interested in chasing money, and it's not actually built on this solid foundation. So that's why, like, all of those pieces get to be in place.
Yeah, like, what were the habits initially that you were working with that got you into this position? Whether it's, like, having a ton of money or being in debt, that makes perfect sense. Healing kind of where you were at that time that created that thing to then be able to create the new habits and systems in place. This is
Mhm.
incredible work that you're doing, genuinely.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh.
How can people work with you? What things do you have coming up? And I'll have, like, how people can connect with you in the show notes, but do you have anything exciting happening with, like, workshops, containers? Tell
Mhm. I do. So, the core of my work right now is in a container. So I've been doing this for a good bit at this point. Um, as far as business coaching, I've been creating courses and programs and things for people to go through. Like as you can tell, it's like I work a lot with intention. I work a lot with like practices and the energy and like a really deep but also the tangible side of things. So I have a container. It's currently called Heart Led Business, but I'm actually just about to change the name. So it's funny because I think by the time this comes out, I'm not sure if it will quite be changed yet, but it's going to be called Life Giving Business. That's what's really revealed itself as the deepest intention of my work, life-giving business. And yeah, the deepest transformation happens in this container. There's different options. So different, like whether you want to be more self-paced, there's lifetime access to all of my business and money content that I've created, or there's some options that include also some personalized group and one-on-one support. So if you want more personalized. So that is if you want the full meal deal, that container is where it's at. But I also do some smaller things here and there. When it comes to money work, I give that option because I think it's so important. I give that option on its own and have an option called Get Rich, which is a challenge. It's like a 21-day challenge that you can go through. It's very accessibly priced and I could honestly sell it for, like, a lot more than I do, but I wanted it to be this kinda thing that people yeah, I have a value of accessibility. And then my full money container is called Wealthy. I've been running that now since 2019, ongoing. It's lifetime access. So yeah, those are the bigger options upcoming. I'm about to announce I don't know exactly when yet, but again, I've been getting over bronchitis for yeah, you knew this, but like so I'm not quite sure when I'm gonna announce it yet, but soon coming up, I'm gonna have a mastermind that people can go through, but it's gonna be I'm pretty sure it's either gonna be low ticket or free. It's gonna be a week long and it's either I'm leaning towards free, but like $30 free. So if you're interested in any of my work, that coming up is going to be great. But I have a podcast, The Wealthy Show, and I have free classes on my website, like a lot of them. So you can go download them and start diving into all the things.
You have so many different ways that people can connect and work with you. It's amazing.
That's really my simplified. That's like I've made. I've like I've done a lot. That's the simplified.
No, you're wonderful. That's why when we connected, I was like, I literally need to have her on, She Who Remembers, because you're just so incredible.
Ah,
People need to
well
you need to keep expanding your work out.
well, thank you. It was so interesting because yeah, we connected on Threads, and I remember you were like, "I'm wanting to interview people who have these qualities," and I was like, "Well, that's literally me, so I don't know." Like, I don't like, I only reply to those if it's like, when people are like, "I'm looking for a coach," or like, "I'm looking to interview someone." A lot of times they're pretty generic, but yours, I was like, "Well, this is specific, and this is literally me, so, I guess, like, we gotta do that."
Me and my spirit team were like, "Let's infuse this post with everything that I'm looking for."
Yeah, it was
And
clear.
it just resonated, like, there were hundreds of replies on that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes."
I'm so happy, and I mean, obviously to us, maybe not people who've heard us yet, but we haven't, like, connected a lot, like, we literally just, like,
I know,
randomly found that thread, but I can even tell from your questions, like, that you have such a deep journey and, it takes knowing and having experiences to be able to ask questions like that.
I appreciate that very much. Yeah, and your story, I feel like we could do a whole part 2 to this because there's still so much. I'm like, "Wait."
There's a lot. I get it. There's a lot.
Your journey is profound, and I think people who experience the things that you've experienced are maybe still in hiding or ashamed or afraid to talk about those things, but the way that you embody it and have turned it into your work is just it's wonderful, and so I'm really grateful to be connected.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm grateful too.
Before we close out, is there anything else that you want to share? Any last little bits? Energy of the retrograde, the year?
Um, I just feel like in this last thing you just said, I'll touch on that a bit, like the things that I've gone through and the shame behind it. I've learned at this point how powerful it is to really express from those places that feel shameful, whether that be, for me, like when I spoke to, "Hey, remember this guy that I was, like, publicly engaged to that I thought I was so in love with?" JK, I was actually in super denial, and that was terrifying. It was there was a part of me that was like, "I'm never gonna have a client ever again." There was a part of me that was so scared. Um, and even when I started making good money in my business and felt called, I ignored that for so long, that calling to work with people on money, because it was this bright spot of sunshine in my life that I was like, "Cool, I have money now. This is so great." But to, like, go online and say that, especially as someone who was like, I'd been teaching meditation, and to be like, "Just kidding, I'm teaching money now." People were like, "What?" They were like, "What a sellout." Some people said that, but other people were like, "Thank God." People were like, "Oh my god." So leaning into that, your callings, it feels scary. It can bring up a lot of shame, but there's just so much power and freedom in whatever way you feel called to lean into those areas in your life, whether that be like joy, the full spectrum things.
That's such profound, like, knowledge and wisdom to share. Like, lean in.
Yeah.
Lean into where you're being intuitively guided, even if it's a whisper, and just trust it even, like, when it doesn't make sense. And even, like, to go way back to what you were saying before of the falling kind of getting back up, and then someone's like, "Wear these shoes, do this thing, go this path." It's like you're being guided by the people around you in the smallest ways, whether you realize it or not. Take that help and take those little, the angel numbers or the synchronicities coming up
Mhm.
and let life take you on the path that you're supposed to go on
Yeah. The support is there, the guidance is there for sure. And like you're saying, that trust in it,
is the
and
biggest
in
key.
yourself. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this and love connecting with you.
Absolutely.
I hope everybody listens to all the other episodes and the show flourishes.
And then go subscribe to The Wealthy Show with Melissa.
Subscribe to everything. DM us and tell us what you think.
Yes. Follow our Instagram and tell us.
Tag us.
This is the real money mindset.